Hello, my name is Vegvisor Firen. Welcome to part 9 of the series that I've been doing, called the CIA project that you've never heard of, Project Gateway. In this video, I will be continuing the narrative of this PDF, which is available to view or download on the CIA Reading Room website, which is freely open to the public. It's called The Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, and you can find it just by Googling for it or using your preferred search engine. I would like to begin by saying that it's been the better part of a year since I've made additions to the series. In that time, I've branched out in many ways as a creator here on YouTube, and with Christmas right around the corner, what better time to start kicking things up a notch than right now? So without further ado, let's just get right into it. The part encodes the whole. Of further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram from the previous video of the ripple pattern of the water's surface on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece of that hologram could recreate the entire holographic image all on its own. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection based off of it, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy and motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. In the aforementioned example, the pebbles representing energy and motion, while the water, before its agitation by those pebbles, represents energy at a state of rest. To activate, or in effect to perceive the meaning of a holograph, or to create a holograph, energy, in this case, a light source, such as a laser beam, must be passed through the interference pattern generated by the interaction between the moving energy, i.e. the pebbles, and the energy at rest, i.e. the surface of the water. In the example given by Bentov, this requirement was fulfilled by holding the frozen interface pattern in front of the coherent light to project the three-dimensional holographic image, its meaning, into space. As Marilyn Ferguson, editor of the Brain Mind Bulletin, tells us, another feature of a hologram is its efficiency. Billions of bits of information can be stored in a tiny space. The pattern of the holographic photograph is stored everywhere on the plate. The consciousness matrix. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to the theories of Karl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we all call consciousness. With respect to states of expanded or altered consciousness, such as gateway uses, the processes operate in the following way. As energy passes through various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the electrostatic fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being conveyed are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize with and therefore read the energy carrier wave pattern passing through it.
I can't turn it off, Nick. I've gone berserk. My brother's wife, rightly so, she freaks out. Like she fucking should. I haven't been there for 10 years. Next minute I'm screaming fucking head off. She's going, what the fuck is wrong with you, Stephen? Stephen! Yes! What the fuck is wrong with you, Stephen? I was at Eric, the bass player's house in Gothenburg. I'm at his house. He's going, you know, Steve, I have over 1,000 Iron Maiden heavy metal t-shirts. But I only have 2 pairs of jeans. But I think I have my priorities correct.
Changes in the frequency and amplitude of the electrostatic field which comprises the human mind determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. Specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram which constitutes memory. By registering differences in geometric pattern form and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives. See Exhibit 2, next page, which I will show on the screen right here. As psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, contrary to what everybody knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. Which leads us to the 15th note. Brain in phase. The consciousness process is most easily envisaged if we picture the holographic input with a three-dimensional grid system superimposed over it, such that all of the energy patterns contained within can be described in terms of three-dimensional geometry, using mathematics to reduce the data to two-dimensional form. Bentov states that scientists suspect that the human mind operates on a simple binary system, such as go or no go, as do all digital computers. Therefore, once it superimposes a three-dimensional matrix over holographic information it wishes to interpret, and reduces that information mathematically to two-dimensional form, it can completely process it using its fundamental binary system, just as any computer made by the hand of man can produce volumes and process volumes of data and make various comparisons between that data and information stored in its digital memory. Our minds operate in the same way, perceiving by comparison only. Bentov states the proposition this way: our whole reality is constructed by constantly making such comparisons whenever we perceive something. We always perceive differences only. In states of expanded consciousness, the right hemisphere of the human brain, in its holistic, nonlinear, and nonverbal mode of functioning, acts as the primary matrix or receptor for this holographic input, while, by operating in a phase or coherence with the right brain, the left hemisphere provides the secondary matrix through its binary computer-like method of functioning to screen further the data by comparison and reduce it to a discrete two-dimensional form. Evaluation. To the extent that Gateway succeeds in bringing about a refinement in energy matrix of the mind, it succeeds in expanding or altering human consciousness so that it can perceive without recourse to the intercession of the physical senses, such that ever more of the universal hologram, not, of course, accessible by sense perception, can ultimately be perceived and understood. Marilyn Ferguson has written that the theories of Pribram and Bohm appear to account for all transcendental experience, paranormal events, and even normal perceptual oddities. She goes on to say of Pribram, currently, he is proposing a startling, all-encompassing model that is generating considerable excitement among those intrigued by the mysteries of human consciousness. His holographic model marries brain research to theoretical physics. It accounts for normal perception and simultaneously takes the paranormal and transcendental experiences out of the supernatural by explaining them as part of nature. Like certain strange discoveries of quantum physics, the radical reorientation of this theory suddenly makes sense of paradoxical sayings of mystics throughout the ages. Selfcognition. To complete our outline of the process by which the human mind achieves and exercises consciousness, we must also describe the mechanism which accounts for the aspect of human thought that differentiates it from the consciousness of plants or animals. This is self-cognition. Humans not only know, but they know that they know. They are able to monitor the process of their own thinking and maintain an awareness of it. Moreover, they can conduct a comparative assessment, evaluating the function of their thought processes against various objective standards that they have adopted. Human consciousness can do this because it has the capacity to duplicate aspects of its own hologram, project them out, perceive that projection, and put it through a comparison with the memory aspect, where its evaluation standards of measure are stored of its own hologram, and measure or sense the differences using three-dimensional geometry, and then binary go, no-go pulse to yield verbal cognition about the self. Time-space dimension. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of time-space is the next task which must be addressed. To do this, we must first appreciate what time and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it is a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern, so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location which is distinguishable from other locations. Space. Energy which is not confined is force without limit, without dimension, without the limits of form. It is infinity, cannot move because there's nothing beyond infinity, and is therefore outside of the dimension of time. It is also beyond space, because that concept implies that a specific energy form is limited to a specific location and is absent from other locations. But if energy is in the state of infinity, there are no boundaries, no here to differentiate from there, no sense of area. Energy in infinity means energy uniformly existing and extended without limit. It has no beginning, no end, no location. It is conscious force, the fundamental, primal power of existence without form, a state of infinite being. Energy in infinity is said to be completely at rest and therefore cannot generate holograms so long as it remains utterly inactive. It retains its inherent capacity for consciousness in that it can receive and passively perceive holograms generated by energy in motion out in the various dimensions which make up the active universe. Energy in this state of inactive infinity is termed by physicists as energy in its absolute state, or simply the absolute. Between the absolute and the material universe in which we experience our physical existence are various intervening dimensions to which human consciousness in altered states of being may gain access. Theoretically, human consciousness may continue to expand the horizons of its perceptual capability until it reaches the dimension of the absolute, at which point perception stops because the absolute generates no holograms of or about itself. Thank you for watching. If you liked this presentation or found it helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd like to give a big thanks to Deca, who created Sleepwalkers, the background music to this video. I will leave a link to that song in the description of this video. I encourage you to take a look at his artwork as it truly expresses the absolute in terms that just about anybody would be capable of grasping. I've not contacted him to use it, so all monetization proceeds from this video will likely be tied to him through the Content ID system. I'm currently working on part 10 at the time of this recording, and should have it out in the next few days. To those of you who keep an eye on my progress, I'd like to say thank you for your guidance, and I will see you in the next installment of the CIA project you've never heard of, Project Gateway. Thank you for your consideration.
Fucking run around, don't believe in God! Well, fuck, why not? He doesn't fucking exist. Well, how do you know? Science told me. Science told me. I also told you were descended from apes. Yeah, well, fuck, you lot might be. I'm fucking not. If anything, I'm ascended from the fucking apes. You understand?